I think the hyper-focus on January 6th oftentimes has to do with the thwarting of the election results. Do you think the 2020 election was stolen?
You know, as I look back, I'm going to say no.
So when it comes to our ally Ukraine, do you think we should fund them in the same way we do Israel?
I say no.
Why not?
Because Ukraine, if you really dig deep, they're not perfect people either, right? I feel bad for those people, but at the end of the day, they need to fight their own wars. And we shouldn't be getting involved in the U.S. We have enough trouble here.
So you can agree that Vladimir Putin's a bad guy. He's a bad dude, right? He's our enemy?
He's a bad dude, man.
He's a bad dude.
Any way you look at it, he's a bad dude. And even though, he's friends with whoever or people feel bad for him, deep down, he's a bad dude.
He's terrible. So my concern is when you see Vladimir Putin invade his next door neighbor, Ukraine, and try to take that territory, annex it for himself, almost like a World War II style invasion, I feel like the U.S., as one of the free leaders of the free world, it's almost on us to fund them. And the thing is, we're sending a lot of military equipment. People think we're sending just money, but a lot of it is military equipment. So
I'm okay with that. I just don't want to send any troops over there. I don't want to get in a war. But yeah, we got to help other countries out, especially when someone is as bad as Putin or any kind of dictator that's trying to take over anything. We got to support it.
The thing is,
we have an obligation to do so because we're the richest country in the world.
To stop dictators, because then Xi Jinping, if he sees Vladimir Putin taking over Ukraine, it'll enable him as well. But see, the argument that I give is if Ukraine fell, Vladimir Putin wouldn't stop. We know he's evil. He would go to the next country and the next country, and eventually U.S. soldiers would get roped in, inevitably. Then that is when World War III actually starts. So by keeping this contained in Ukraine, providing them equipment, providing them humanitarian aid, we're almost it's our obligation.
It is our obligation. Otherwise, we're getting into World War II with Hitler that just started taking over every country, and he almost succeeded.
Exactly.
And we can't let that happen.
And people are giving me the vibe. So I've talked to some people and they say, just leave Ukraine for the wolves. That is exactly what people said about Poland in 1939, and we all know how that went. It turned into an absolute war.
We got to do the right thing. It's one thing I like about Trump, it's all about doing the right thing. I talk to my kids, always do the right thing. As hard as it may be, just do the right thing. And that's what we need to do as a country.
So it makes me wonder, what do you think about the trials going on right now in Manhattan?
It's a witch hunt. If Trump was not running, he would not be on trial. Mm-hmm. It's that simple. They're after him because they don't want him to be president. They're afraid of him.
What do you think about this case coming up where he allegedly, it's an election interference case where they placed fake slates of electors in multiple swing states and tried to supersede, override the will of the American people with these fake slates of. Have you heard about that at all?
I heard about it, but it's not fact.
You don't think so?
I don't think it's fact, or they haven't proven it.
Yeah.
Prove it. If you can prove it to me, then I'll stand behind it. But because it goes back to doing the right thing.
Yep.
But they haven't proved nothing.
If they're able to prove it, provide the evidence to an impartial jury, and Trump gets convicted, would that change your mind? Or
it might change it a little bit because but I'd have to see all the facts. Right now, I'm not seeing any facts. So and I can't make a decision based on not having the facts.
So another one of the cases, with that case, you even hear phone calls of him saying, "Find me X amount of votes." With Raffensperger, he was like, "I need you to find these votes so we can flip the election." And then there's another case where he showed people documents. Do you remember that one?
I don't remember that case. That one I'm not familiar with.
One of the documents cases coming up is there's this phone call where he's like, "I'm not supposed to be showing you this document, but here, look at this document of basically classified intel." Do you think he should probably not be doing stuff like that?
Well, I haven't seen it. I can't comment on it. But he should be doing that. He should not be doing that. That's
fair.
If you're not abiding to the law, then you should be prosecuted.
That is fair. And no president, nobody should be above the law, even if they're an ex-president.
I don't care who you are.
Yeah. So I want to ask you finally, do you think the 2020 election was stolen?
As I look back, I'm going to say no.
That's great.
I thought about it a long time, and I have no proof that showed that it was stolen. Now, coming up, I just want to make sure that people that are voting, they have IDs, they're not voting. People aren't voting 3-4 times.
Yeah.
That could happen. So I hope they just control all that.
See, I think all Americans want fair elections, but what Donald Trump was claiming was this widespread top-down voter fraud scheme to basically have millions and millions of illegal votes, but that just wasn't borne out anywhere. They brought it to courts.
I didn't see it. I know, they were showing here, even in Wisconsin, some last-minute ballots they came through, and I think 90% of them were for Biden, but it is what it is.
Yeah, but that could have been mail-in voters, and the level that Trump was claiming it was at was millions of votes across the country. That's hard to not only do, but do without leaving a trace. And then even people like Mike Pence, people like Bill Barr, Mark Meadows all said, hey, there's not enough evidence. So do you think Mike Pence was justified on January 6th when he certified the results?
I think he was justified.
Yeah.
I think so. I really do. At the end of the day, we'll have to see what happens in November. Yep. But as long as there's no foul play,
yep,
let the best man win.
Exactly. That's what America's about. It's a
democracy.
democracy.
Vote for Biden when he can't even speak. I don't understand.
Did you watch the State of the Union at all?
Oh, I watch everything.
Do you think? See, I thought he did pretty well. I thought he was able to speak.
I think he was too rough. Like he was like mean.
Yeah, that's
angry.
fair. Yeah.
I mean, he was like yelling and screaming and. Not that Trump doesn't, but...
Yeah, Trump's a good... He comes up with all these nicknames and stuff as well. Yeah. Our country is built off of immigration. Because sometimes it scares me when I talk to people and their remedy is to just close down the border completely, and that's not an answer.
No, absolutely not.
The answer is to have the mechanisms in place at the border to process these people more effectively, because we have slightly too many people coming over, but if we can process them in the right way, it won't feel like that. It'll feel like everyone's being integrated. So, so you think immigration's a net benefit for the economy as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, because there are a lot of jobs that people... sometimes don't want to do, I guess, but we need them filled. And I think there's a lot of people that come here and they do work hard, and we need to encourage that.
Absolutely. That is a great take. So then I also want to ask you, you live in Iowa, so it's a little more topical. There was a shooting just a few days ago. What do you think about that? What do you think about this whole situation?
I mean, it's sad. I mean, I hate seeing that happen. I have a wife who works in the school district here, and it's something that's on everybody's minds when you work, really wherever you are. But, I mean... The first reaction to always just say we need to take away guns, I don't agree with that. I think some common sense legislation maybe, but what that would be exactly, I don't know. I'm not sure. But you're never going to keep the guns out of the hands of people that want to do something bad with them, ever.
I do not want anyone taking guns away.
Right.
But an example of a common sense law, I think, would be, for example, about a month ago in Maine, someone walked into a bar and killed like 20 people, if you remember this, the Maine shooter, and it came out that he had schizophrenia, and people knew he had schizophrenia, and he told people that he was going to do this. So even in this situation, if we would have just had some mechanism to stop this person from having a high-powered like rifle, right? That's just an example of a very common sense law where it's like someone like this, I think we could all agree, should not have access to a gun. And I think that's a good place to start, where it's like if you have documented illness to a certain extent. Would you agree with that?
I think that's fair. I think the concern, and I'm not necessarily like a big gun person necessarily, but I just always worry that when you start opening the door to limiting gun ownership or taking guns away, where does it stop? So I'm always skeptical of what the government ultimately will do once you open the door a little bit. But yes, I mean, people who have mental conditions and, it makes sense. They probably shouldn't be able to go buy guns.
And the question is always, will people start to hide their mental conditions then too so they can own guns? So there are definitely problems with it, but I think it's a good place to start to have this conversation. Like, how can we save lives and stuff like that?
Definitely.
So the next question is, this is a good conversation, by the way. Thank you for talking to us. It's 3 years, the 3-year anniversary of January 6th. What do you think about that?
I think what happened that day has been probably blown way out of proportion, and I think a lot of people who were just there truly just to experience what was going on have probably been harassed unnecessarily the last 3 years. I mean, it was a rough day, obviously, but I personally don't know that it was maybe what the left has tried to make it out to be.
I think there were a lot of people there that were peaceful and didn't have nefarious intentions, but at the same time, inside the Capitol that day, they were certifying the results of the election, right? It was Mike Pence certifying the 2020 election results. So when you have a massive crowd of people breaking in, and a lot of them were peaceful, we can concede that, but say a small amount, we're trying to break in to stop the certification of this election results. That's kind of what scares me. So when you have people trying to undermine our peaceful transfer of power and undermine people's right to votes, that's the part of the whole situation that kind of worries me. So can you see where I'm coming from in that?
I do. And I think, some of the events that day were definitely unfortunate, and I think part of it was just maybe some frustration on the part of some people who felt like really a lot of things were done in the last election that skewed the results maybe in a way that wasn't how it should have turned out. But you shouldn't be breaking into the Capitol building.
I think the hyper-focus on January 6th oftentimes has to do with the thwarting of the election results. That's the big thing right there. And I'm going to take it a step further. You'll probably disagree with this, but I do think Trump did have something to do with the people there trying to break into the Capitol. I think if you hold a rally 10 minutes away and you tell people to like take your country back and that everything's stolen from you, that people are,
I don't know, people respond emotionally.
Inevitably somebody's going to take that and try to storm the Capitol. Yeah. Can you see the argument?
I mean, I can see where people maybe felt like he wasn't reacting maybe as quickly as he should have that day, but I mean, I personally don't believe his intention was for that to happen. I think when you plant a seed sometimes with people, you may not be able to predict how far they're going to go with what seed you've planted. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, sir.
I don't disagree with you at all.
That was a great talk. I think we found a lot of common ground, and that's usually our goal.